I'm back at it again to take the title of the King of CSS. And in order to claim my title, I need to accomplish these CSS battles as quickly as possible. They're almost all retro video game themed, which is really cool. And just by looking at these, I already have a bunch of tricks up my sleeve of different techniques I can use to really sneak out a quick win. Welcome back to Web Dev Simplified. My name's Kyle, and my job is to simplify the web for you so you can start building your dream project sooner. And today I'm going to be tackling a bunch of these different retro video game styled CSS battles. And instead of starting with this very first one, I'm actually going to be starting with this second CSS battle, mostly because this one's a bit more complex, and I have some really tricky techniques I want to use in this first one, but I want to do a warm-up first to get myself back used to doing CSS battles. So I'm going to have a timer that's going to show up right here, and as soon as I start, that's going to start the countdown, so let's start now. First thing I want to do in every CSS battle is just remove the margin from the body, and also inside of here, we're going to have our div. We need to make sure our background color is the correct background. So we can say background, just like that. That way we had the black background. And then we're going to have essentially a couple different divs. So let's do 3 divs to start. Let me just fix this spacing here, copy this down. Let's actually give them a class first. So we'll say bar. These are going to be for that horizontal bars. And this one is going to be slanted. And this one is going to be called bar 3. And I guess we could just call this bar 1. Might as well just call this bar 2. Okay. So we need to style our bars. We're going to have a background, background, which is the background that we copied. Let me copy that over again. There we go. And then we're going to give them a width and a height. So let's say the height is going to be like 20 pixels. And let's put this on diff mode. I think that makes it a little bit easier. And just for now, I'm just going to put a margin of like 10 pixels so we can see the sizing on them. Honestly, 20 pixels of height looks pretty good. For the width, I'm going to do maybe 150 pixels. It's way too small. Let's do 300. That might actually be correct. And then we can just say margin left is going to be maybe 40 pixels, 50 pixels. Yeah, that looks correct. So now let's do a border radius. We can just make this as big as we want because it's just a perfect pill shape. There we go. And now we just need to position these in the correct location. I believe that should be all that we need to do. So I can just say bar 1. Let's give these a position absolute. I could just say the top on this one is going to be like 100 pixels. Not quite. Let's try 90. There we go. It looks like it's lined up perfectly. As you can see, it's gone black there. So now we can just copy this down. Bar number 2 is going to have a top, and this one's going to be like 150 or something like that. We'll get that one later because it's going to be slanted. And then finally, we're going to have bar 3, which is maybe like 200, 190. There we go. 190 is perfect. So now for this bar 2, we're just going to put a simple transform on it. Transform, rotate, 45 degrees. That might be too much for rotation. Yeah, let's do negative 15 degrees. I'm going to turn off that diff mode. Still too steep. Okay, 5 degrees looks correct, so let's put that diff mode back on. And let's just move it up, maybe 140 pixels. Okay, that seems right. It just seems like our slant might be a little bit off, so we'll do like negative 4 degrees. There we go, that's perfect. So now we have our 3 bars in the right location. Now we just need our vertical bars, essentially, in the right place. So let's come in here with a div that has a class of vbar. And we'll call this one vbar1. We're going to have 4 of these. I know this is not the best naming, but, you know, it is what it is. When you're trying to go fast, you can't really think of names. So .vbar. I'm going to honestly share a lot of these styles, so I'm just going to copy all of this over. Our background is obviously going to be pure white. Our height here is going to be variable for each one, but the width should be the same. We should say that the width is like 20 pixels, I believe. There's no border radius on this one. Margin left is not going to be there. Position absolute. And like I said, height is going to be a variable thing. So .vbar1 is going to have a left of, let's say, like 50 pixels. And why is this not showing up? Oh, we need to give them a height. So let's just say by default, the height is going to be 20 pixels, just so we can see the bars. Okay. So our left is maybe 100 pixels, not quite. 80 pixels, that looks good. Top is going to be like 150 pixels. Nope, 130 or 120, sorry. And let's give our height the correct value. Actually, let's get the top in the right place. I think it's 110. There we go. And now our height for this one, I think it's going to be double, so 40. Yeah, that should be good. I just want to make sure that our V or our bar has a higher Z index. So Z index 10. That way it just shows up over top. There we go. Now let's get bar 2 in the right location. The top should be the same, but the left will be much larger. So it's going to be like 180, 280, 300. There we go. That looks perfect already. Don't even need to mess with anything else. Our next bar, this is going to be our third bar, and we're just going to make it have essentially a higher top. So like 150. There we go. That fills in that bottom section. And then this final bar is going to be that one in the middle there. So bar 4. For this one, our left is like 150. Oops, 150. Nope, 200. Not quite. 190. There we go. I believe that should be correct. Let's submit. And there we go. It looks like I got 100% on that one. Yeah, 100% match. That's perfect. Okay, let's go back to the battle screen here. And I know I told you I have a really fancy technique for this one. So instead of making you wait any longer, let's just do this one right now. And let's just get started so I can show you the technique I'm talking about. So first thing we need to do is body, margin 0, background, FFF. I don't think we actually need to put that, but we'll just put it there just in case. And now we're going to have 2 divs. The first div I'm going to do is this black one, and then the blue one is where the fancy technique I'm going to do is going to come and play, and we'll see if it actually works. So we're going to call this A, because I can't think of anything cooler to do. We actually need 2 of these, so we'll have like an A right and an A left, because we're essentially just going to need to have 2 rectangles, I believe, is going to be how I do that. I'm going to put them inside of a container as well. So div class equals a container. Close that off. There we go. Let's just indent that. Okay. So inside of our a container, we're going to need to give that a certain width and height. So we can say like width is 100 pixels, height 100 pixels. And we'll just put the background as red just so we can see what this box looks like. And I'm just going to use this box to cut off the top and the bottom of this A shape. Essentially, I'm just going to make it overflow hidden. So let's do this diff here real quick. And I want to position this absolute. And our width is going to be like 200 pixels maybe. Our height is going to be like 200 pixels, sure. And let's say top is 50 pixels. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think it needs to be 60 pixels here. There we go. And this height is actually like 190 or 180. Yeah, 180. Okay. And then we'll just give it a left of like 50 pixels or 100 pixels. And then we can just make it, I guess 90 would be correct. There we go. And we'll make it just a little bit wider, 210, 220. Okay. So now everything for our shape actually fits inside this box for our A, which is exactly what we want. So we can remove this background now and we just have our shape. And now we need to style out our different A elements. So we have an A and an A left. So these are going to have a background, which is set to this background color. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give them a width, for example, 30 pixels. Height is going to be, let's just say 100%. So it just fills the full container size. Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't really matter how tall they are. We'll just say like 900 pixels because it overflow hidden. If we do overflow hidden, there we go. Now it'll not be shown. Looks like our width is a little off, so we'll do 40. Transform, rotate. I should just use the rotate property. Let's just do rotate 15 degrees. Maybe 20 degrees. Oh, and since I made my height so big, that kind of makes my rotate not so great. So let's just make the height the actual value, which is 180 pixels. It needs to be a little bigger than that. We'll do 200. Okay. And now what we need to do is we just need to move it properly. So we'll do position absolute. Left is 10 pixels. 20, 30, 40, 50. Our rotate is a little off. Let's change this to like 15 degrees. 25 degrees. Okay, 25 is perfect. So now we just move our left back a little bit. Let me see here. Looking pretty good. I can't tell if it's too big, too small, or just the right size. We'll just make it a little bit taller. So we'll say like 220 pixels. And oh, we need to specify our top. Our top is going to be negative 20 pixels. There we go. Yeah, I can't quite tell. It looks like it's a little bit too big. So we're going to reduce our width to like 30. No, we'll go back to 40. Oh, duh, I need to move us to the left a little bit. So we'll say like left is 45. That looks really good. It looks spot on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this. I shouldn't have put all these styles in here. I should have put this on A left, and A should not have any of the left or right positions or so on. I guess for A right, whoops, A right is going to be very similar to A left in that we just want to have our top, or our left be a negative value, and we want to have our rotate be a negative value. And this should actually just say right and be a positive value. Hopefully that does what we want. And then this should be dot A left. I'm going to copy all of this into there. Okay, now we got our A. Perfect. So now we get to go on to the part which is this check mark. And this check mark is where I have a really cool technique. I think I can do it with one single div. So we'll just call this check mark. And of course, I can't use emit inside of here. I think the hardest part about CSS Battles is just not being able to use all the normal stuff I'm used to with VS Code. So, check mark. And now you may be thinking, okay, I want to set the background to be the, you know, what color we got here? This blue color, but actually I'm going to be setting it to white. And I'm going to be setting my border to be, what does this look like? 20 pixels, solid, and then this color. There we go. So now if I give this a size, we'll say like height is 200 pixels, width 200 pixels, just for now. And we want to do a transform rotate. Might as well just do the normal rotate. 45 degrees, so it's on its side like that. There we go. Oh, actually, I don't quite think this will work the way I thought it would, unfortunately, because this top portion of the A is going to be overwritten by this background color. That is a bit unfortunate. But we'll tackle that when we get to that. So let's put the diff on here so we can get this in the right position. This is way too big. Let's reduce it in size, 100 by 100. Maybe the width can be 200 still or something like that. Or we'll do 150. That looks like it's pretty similar to the right size. We'll do a position. Oops. Position. Absolute. I'm going to actually set the bottom here to be 50 pixels. Just so when we mess with our size, it shouldn't actually change things. 150 pixels, 125, 120. Okay, that's the right size there. Left is going to be like 100 pixels, 110 pixels, 120 pixels. No, 105. Okay, there we go. That's the right size. I think it's a little bit too big. No, it just needs to move up a little bit. Our bottom should be like 125 or 122. There we go. Okay, that's the right spot. That's exactly where it should be. So now we need to have the white portion going around it, and that's where my trick actually came in. I was going to use a box shadow for this, and I believe I could do an offset of 0, 0, and I wanted to do, let's see here, I'm not super familiar with, we have the blur value and the spread, so I want 0 blur, and then we're going to do, how big we think that is, 10 pixels. I want to make the color white. So now as you can see, now we have a solid white section on the outside here. It's a little bit too big actually, it looks like. So I need to make this like 9 pixels. Or 8. Yeah, 8 looks like the correct size. So essentially all I've done is I've added like another border around the element. That's what box shadow allows us to do. When you don't give it a blur, it's going to be a solid line that's this many pixels wide. In our case, 8 pixels wide on the outside. So that's exactly what I've done there. We obviously need to cut this off at this location and this location. So we need to put our check mark in a container. Dot check mark container. And again, can't use emit. Whoops. There we go. And in our checkmark container, I realize this is probably going to mess up all my sizing since I didn't do this earlier. I need to give it a, I essentially just need to position it in the right location, which I believe I can use this for. Absolute. Remove this and this. Okay, not quite what I was expecting. Let's do our diff. Give this a background color of red. Height is going to be 100%. And width is going to be like 100 pixels. 200 pixels. And our left needs to be like 125. Nope, 120. There we go. And let's just style this from the top. Top is going to be 50 pixels, and we need to give it a specific height instead of 100%. Let's just say 200 pixels. Okay, this gets a little bit confusing. I'm going to change the backgrounds on this to get rid of that so we don't actually see anything, hopefully. There we go. Okay. Top is 50 pixels. We need to make it a little bit smaller of a box, so the height should be like 100 pixels, 150 pixels. And let's set this top to like 60, 70. There we go. That's pretty much perfectly sized inside of that box. It doesn't have to be exact. Just the left and right side need to be exact so we can get that cut off. So now let's add these colors back in. This is going to get really ugly looking. Whoops. There we go. Turn off the diff so we can see what we're working with. We need to get rid of that red color, which is here. Now we just need to position our box in the right location. So we can say top is, or we'll say bottom is 0. Okay, not quite. 20 pixels, 30, 40. Okay, that looks right. Now we just need to move it to the left by saying the left is like 10 pixels, but it just needs to be like negative, I think. So negative 20, 15. Okay, that's looking really close. Yeah, maybe it needs to move up like 1 pixel. That do our job. 42. Yeah, it looks pretty spot on, I'd say. Oh, we have that section showing up right there. Ooh, interesting. Okay, I didn't think about that. Yeah, because our box is not wide enough. So I think if we make our box a little bit wider by doing like 160, 70, 80, 90, 100, or 200 wide. Oh no, it's not the width that's the problem. It is our height. 170. There we go. No, make it a little bit bigger. 190. Okay. Now we just need to reposition our box in the right location. This is a bit annoying the way I did this, I think, but it'll work. So our bottom, let's make it 20, 30, 35. That looks good. Left is 1, -1, 2. Yeah, -1 looks correct. 36. Okay, that looks pretty good. Yeah, that gives us what we want. Unfortunately, I cut out that top part, so if I get rid of the background color on this, now we have everything working, but this inside portion is not working as I expect it to, which is unfortunate. I wonder if I can get an inset box shadow as well. So if I can do like a, how do you do inset box shadows? I think it's like 0, 0, 0, 8 pixels, white. I just need to add like the inset keyword to it. Hey, there we go. That's exactly what I wanted. So this is an even better way of doing it. We got a little bit of movement, but it should be close enough. Now we just need the dot. So we have a div class dot. Okay. This one's going to be super easy. Background is going to be that blue background. Let me get my diff on here. So we're going to do width is 10 pixels, height 10 pixels, position absolute, border radius 100%, top is 100 pixels, left 100 pixels. This is clearly too small. There we go, that looks right. So we'll do 150, 150, maybe 200. Okay, that's pretty close. So we'll try 140, 30, oops, 140. Yeah, 140 was right, and this will be like 190. Okay, our dot needs to be bigger. 25, 25. And our top needs to be 35 and 85, I believe. No, that's not quite right. Let's see. Our dot is now too big, it looks like. That's kind of strange. Normally they do these with like even numbered values, so I might be doing something wrong. 22 seems pretty close. So we'll do 137, 8, 9, 189. All right, that looks perfect. So let's turn off the div here, submit that, and let's see if we are correct or not. And there we go, 100% match. So this was interesting. My original technique of using this background didn't work because I forgot about the fact it'll cover the top part of our A, but the fact we were able to use both an outset and an inset box shadow made doing this check mark in one element actually possible, which I think is really cool and something I'll have to keep in mind for future CSS battles because that's a really tricky technique that normally I would use like 2 or 3 divs for. So let's go back here and let's see which one we want to tackle next. Let's do, yeah, let's do this one. This will be another fairly easy one, I think. So it'll be kind of a good warm up before we tackle the asteroids one, which I think is going to be a little bit harder. So let's get started now. Turn it on to diff mode, get our body to remove the margin, and our background is black. There we go. So now we need to create essentially our Pac-Man. Pac-Man. Whoops. Pac-Man. Background is going to be that yellow color. There we go. And then it looks like it has like a perfect square cut out of it, so it's a mostly full circle. So we'll say that the width is 100 pixels, height 100 pixels. All right, that's way too big. 50, 50, that looks about right. Border radius 100%. Position absolute. Top is going to be like 150 pixels. 120 pixels. Okay, our Pac-Man is not quite the right size. He needs to be a little bit bigger. There we go. And our left is going to be maybe 50 pixels. 40, 60. Yeah, 60 was correct. Okay. Now to cut out the section in his mouth, I think what I'm going to do is just kind of cheat. I'm just going to create another div. I'm just going to make it a rotated square, essentially. Mouth. So I can copy almost everything from here. Change the background color to black. There we go. And then what I want to do is just have it rotate 45 degrees. Don't care about that border radius. And I just need to move the left to like 80. Let's turn this off so we can see. So like 90. 100. There we go. That looks like the perfect Pac-Man mouth to me. Yeah, perfectly lined up. So I just essentially had a square overwriting that one section. So now it's coming here with another div. We'll give this one a class of the dot. This is going to be the little dots that Pac-Man eats. Dot. We're technically going to have 3 of these. So we'll say dot 1, dot 2, dot 3. There we go. Background is white. Width is like 5 pixels. These are very small. Height is 5 pixels. Border radius, 100%. Position, absolute. And then we can style each dot in the right location. So they're all going to have the same top. So let's just come in here and say like top is going to be 145. Okay, these are actually slightly bigger. They're 10 pixels each. There we go. And then we're going to say like left is 150 pixels. Okay, 160, 70, 65. There we go. That's the right location. Now we're going to have dot 2, dot 3. So this one's going to be like 205. Not quite that far, I don't think. 185, 90, 95. There we go. So this one's probably going to be 225, if I had to guess. Yep, they're the same space apart. Okay. So now we can do our ghost, and the way I think I'm going to do the ghost is going to be probably a rectangle with a rounded top and then 3 squares to cut off the bottom. So we'll say ghost. There we go. Dot ghost. Background, copy over that red color. Height is going to be the same height as Pac-Man, which I think is 60 pixels. Width is, I think, probably the same. Border, top, left radius is going to be 50%. Yeah, and then we'll do the top right radius the same way. So now we have that rounded top. That's perfect. And now I just need to move it into the correct location, which is going to be very similar to Pac-Man. So I'm just going to copy that, paste it down here, and the left is obviously just going to be like... Actually, I think we just changed this to right. Yeah, it's perfectly mirrored. Okay. So now we just need to create div class equals ghost cut out. Sure. And we'll do cutout 1, 2, and 3. Now these are going to be very similar to the Pac-Man mouth, so I'm just going to copy that down. Ghost cutout. So the width on these is going to be a lot smaller. It's going to be like 20 pixels, 20 pixels, rotated 45 degrees. Our left position, we'll just do this from the right instead. And our top here is going to be like 150 pixels, 60, 70. Okay, that looks pretty similar. I think this is like a 10 by 10, maybe 15 by 15. And our right here is like 105, 104, 103, 102, 103. This is like 171. That look about right? Doesn't look like it's far enough down, so we'll say like 172, 3. There we go, that looks far enough down. Now it's not cutting in far enough to the shape. Unless they just overlap each other a little bit. I don't think they do. Actually, no, it looks like they do. So let's put this back to 171. And we're just going to style out multiple of the cutouts. So we'll say this one's called cutout 1. And all we need to do is just move this right position to be smaller. So we'll say like 90, 80, 81, whoops, 81, 2. Okay, that looks like the right location. Yeah, that's not quite the right sizing. So if we change the top, these should all have the same top. So let's change the top to like 172. Yeah, it just doesn't quite cut out enough. So I wonder if I make my width like 16 and 16. And then I change this to 102 to move it back. Now it's cutting in too far. So let's bring it back down another size. Okay, that looks... Oh, yeah, that looks perfect. Let's just add in one more. This will be cut out 2. And this can move down by another 20 pixels, so we'll say 62. Ah, not quite. Not quite. I wonder if it's 63? No, 62 seems right. Oh, duh. I need to remove the width and height from both of these. There we go. Now let's submit this. This looks the same. And there we go, 100% match. So this one was another really pretty straightforward one. It was kind of nice that I was able to just do a bunch of square cutouts for the different shapes instead of fancy stuff. But let's move on to what I think will be the final one for this video, and that's going to be this kind of like asteroid style one. I think this will be a really fun one to do. So for this one, I actually think I'm going to do something a little bit different. Instead of just positioning everything absolutely, I'm going to try to use like Flexbox or Grid to lay these out to make them a little bit more interesting. With that said, let's get started now. So we have a little bit of an extra challenge for ourselves. Background is going to be this killer. Make sure I close that off. And margin 0. Okay, so I think we're going to give this a class of like alien wrapper. These things up here that look like mustaches, those are going to be our aliens. Div. And for each one of our aliens, we're essentially going to have 3 different pieces, I think. Yeah, so we're going to have I think we can just put 3 divs inside of here, like that. And we can just use CSS Grid for this. So this is like maybe not the best way to do it, but it's going to be using some kind of cool things. So alien wrapper, what I want to display of grid template areas. I haven't used this in a long time. I essentially want to have some area at the top where it's going to be a dot. I think we'll just represent empty. We're going to have long, a dot. And then, let's see, I'm going to put this on multiple lines. And I don't think we need to, oh, we do need to wrap that in quotes. I don't remember the best way to make this go onto multiple lines, to be honest. So we got long. How do we do multiple lines in CSS Grid? Let me look this up real quick. Okay, very first search result, I just need to put them into their own quotes. So something like this, followed by, we're going to have small dot small. Okay, that's going to be our grid template areas. Oh, and long needs to be 3 long, like that, and 3 dots. Yeah, or is it 3 long or is it 4 long? It actually looks like it's 4 long, so let's put 4 of those in there, and then 4 dots. And this we'll call right. And this, I think we're going to call left. Okay. class, left. Actually, we can just cheat. Alien, wrapper, first child. Whoops, yeah, we want the first child inside of it. There we go. So what we want to do is grid, template, area, left. Don't need to wrap that in quotes. We can do the last child. Grid template area is going to be right. And then we can just use the star selector here to select the only remaining one, long. And we can also say background is going to be this purple. Okay, that didn't do anything, but I didn't define my sizing for my grid template areas. So grid template columns. Let's see here. We want this to be essentially like 5 pixels. Repeat 6 times. Whoops, there we go. Grid template rows is going to be 5 pixels, 5 pixels. So we can just say like repeat 2, 5 pixels. There we go. So I should give us 6 columns, 2 rows, all of them 5 pixels wide. Why is nothing showing up? That's a great question. I wonder if we can inspect this and see what is going on. So let's take this out of that mode. We have our image. I don't really see a good way to inspect this. Oh, maybe. Yes, we got our container, item header, item content, target. Okay, here we go. It's an iframe. Oh, that's kind of annoying. That'll be a little bit trickier to debug what's going on inside of here. So yeah, we have our alien wrapper with our different container sizes. So it's 400 by 0. And all these are 5 by 0. So I think it's not taking into account our columns or our rows for some reason. So let's just say width 100%, height 100%. Not quite, not quite, not quite, not quite. So our grid should have these rows and columns being defined. I think it does. Let's inspect this again. Again, this isn't like the most optimal way to do this, but I think it's fun to challenge yourself in these kinds of ways by trying to do something a little bit trickier. Let's see here. Get back into here. Let's click on the wrapper. Let's make sure all of our styles are being applied. I see the problem. I don't know how to spell. Okay, I think I can even get rid of this and that. Yep. So I don't know how to spell is our problem. Oh, this shouldn't be called grid template area. This should say grid area. Left, right, long, last, child. Okay. So now if I just change this to be 10 pixels, which looks like is the actual size. Is it 10 pixels? Maybe they're not quite 10 pixels. Let's actually get this position into the correct location for now. So position, absolute, top is 50 pixels. Whoops, left is 25 pixels. Put it on diff mode. Like we need to go down a little bit. So 60, whoops, 50, 40. Okay, 40 is correct. And this is probably like 30. Yeah, that's correct. So it looks like we maybe have one extra square in the middle I forgot to account for. So this should be a 7. And this should say long again. And this should have a dot. There we go. Okay, so they're just one wider than I thought they were. So now we're just going to essentially have multiple of these. So I want to create a wrapper. Alien wrapper container. Yeah, you gotta love that naming right there. Let's close that off. Put our alien wrappers inside of it. And we just need to have multiple alien wrappers. So boom, boom, boom. There's 4 of them. Yeah, there's 4 of them. And this I'm going to be using Flexbox for. So we can say .alien wrapper container position absolute. We already know what our top and left position are. I can just copy those over. There we go. Display flex gap is going to be, it looks like 2 spaces worth of gap, and each one of these spaces is 10 pixels. So gap 20 pixels. Okay. Absolute. There we go. Perfect. We got all of those lined up exactly where we want them to be. Now all we need to do is copy this entire thing one more time, and this one's going to be called yellow. Now we can just say copy that, dot yellow, change the color to yellow, okay? And we also need to copy this for the yellow one, because the top is going to be higher, like 80. Or 90. Yep, 90 looks correct. And now what we need to do is remove that middle one. The easiest way to do that is just to say hide, and we'll just say dot hide, display none. Oh, actually, no, that won't quite work as I expect. Okay, I'll cheat in a different way. Background is this background color. This is a super hacky cheat, but I really think it's fine. There we go. That just hides all the children. Okay, super kind of hacky, but whatever, it works. And yeah, everything's perfect. So now let's do the stuff at the bottom. So let's kind of close that, Div class equals gun. And then we're gonna have a div class equals, whoops, bullet. Yeah, because we're gonna have 2 bullets coming out of the gun. Actually, we'll probably have like 3 or something like that. Let's just do the gun first. That gun, for this, I'm just gonna essentially have a sideways square. So height 50 pixels, width 50 pixels, rotate 45 degrees. You can say bottom 0. And let's make sure we give it a color. And let's see, does that show up on our screen? Nowhere do I see that at all. Oh, maybe if I spelled width correctly, it would show up. Okay, let's see, height, width. Do we have something with that class? Yes, we do. Position absolute. Let's get rid of the bottom 0 and the position absolute. Why is this not showing up? That's a really good question. It has a height, it has a width. It should be showing up. It's got a background. Oh, well, it would have a background if I spelled it correctly. Okay. So now that we actually have this right, let's do translate negative 50% in the y direction. Bottom 0, translate that down by 50%. There we go. Now it's perfectly on the bottom. It's a little bit too big, so we'll do like 40. Maybe 30 is the correct size. And now we just need to have a left property, which is 50%, negative 50%. That should be dead centered. Hey, there we go, exactly what we want. So now we need our gun barrel, and I can just cheat and use the before element. Width is 10 pixels, height is 20 pixels. Make sure I spell background properly so we actually have a background on it. There we go. And let's say position absolute. Top is negative, or let's do negative 20 pixels. Oh, and rotate negative 45 degrees to get it back rotated the proper way. And left is going to be like 10 pixels. Whoops. Right, 10 pixels. I'm sorry. Left, negative 10 pixels. Negative 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. All right, 15 is good. And our top will be like -10. Oh, this is not fun because of the rotate. Transform origin center. I should hopefully fix some of these problems. So let's do our left is -5 because that looked correct. -9, that looks correct. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit off to the side. It's 9, 4. Yeah, that looks really good there. Okay, so now we need to do our bullets. And these should be fairly straightforward. Whoops. Let's make sure I spell background correctly this time, because we all know what happens when I don't do that. 10 pixels. Height is 10 pixels. Position absolute. Top is 200 pixels. Left 50%. Translate -50%. And top looks like it needs to be 210. There we go. And let's do bullet 2. Not even going to share any of these styles because there's no point. This would be like 250 or something like that. Oh, a little bit too far. It was 240. There we go. That looks perfect. Submit, and hopefully this is a 100% on the first try. There we go. All of them 100% on the first try. Not too bad. So this one I think was fun because I was able to challenge myself to use grid and flexbox up here, which made it so that it's a little bit more flexible. If you wanted to add another robot, you could add another robot without having to change any of your CSS. You would just add it up here and it would work just fine. I think that's a really cool, thing that we did with this, and a fun challenge that I think is a good way to challenge yourself if you're finding these too easy or too boring. Just throw in a challenge like that and it'll make it a lot more fun and interesting. That was a ton of fun, and I feel like I actually did really good with these challenges, and that box shadow technique was just perfect. Now, if you're interested in seeing more challenges like this, I'm going to have them linked right over here, and I'm hoping to do more of them in the future, which I'll link over here as well. With that said, thank you very much for watching and have a good day.